Exactly 5:30. You ready? Jake, are you ready?
Gives you the audio, turn on the mic.
He's never ready.
Dave's always ready.
It's gonna be a bad time.
Okay. Jane, yes, you ready? Okay. Well, good evening and thanks all. It's on? It is okay. You didn't get it. Okay. All right. Well, good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the public hearing regarding the proposed third amendment to Tillamook County Ordinance number 74, transient lodging tax. I understand that this morning there was some confusion regarding the meeting link and that some of you were not able to use the Board of Commissioners link that was posted on our website, but instead were at the DCD link from the previous stakeholder meetings. I am sorry for any confusion that occurred, and I'm happy to see that we have a good group of people with us tonight. And I hope those of you that had the wrong link this morning are able to be with us tonight. And reminding folks, this is not the last public hearing. We will have another one on February 12th at 10 a.m. that will use the Board of Commissioners link. So to be clear, these are official public hearings and the Board of Commissioners link will be the one used going forward as it was this morning and is tonight. I'd like to take just a few moments to set the tone for tonight and to explain our process, as it's a little different than the stakeholder meetings that many of you may have attended 2 weeks ago. First, I want to thank everyone who sent in comments and those who attended our previous meetings. You've shared information that we didn't have and that we will be considering during deliberations following tonight's public comments. I do request that we all remember that we are here to gather and consider information to make a very important decision. I respectfully ask that you keep your comments focused on facts you would like us to consider and avoid any comments that are rude or personally attack anyone in the room. I say that only because we've been through a few of these processes that have gone a little off the rails. So I just like to remind everyone that this is a shared process with you, and we appreciate your just being kind as we go through this. We do want to hear from you. For those who are online, please keep your camera and microphone off until you are called to speak. And we will call those online. We're going to invite you, if you would like to give public comment, to put your hand up online in the app, and then we will call you. And we're going to go back and forth between the room and online so that we can get everybody a chance to be heard. In order to keep to our required format and provide as much time as possible for everyone to comment, we will be keeping everyone's comments to 2 minutes. So we have a timer in the room. Sarah will keep track. When you have 30 seconds remaining, I'll just give you a little wave to let you know you need to wrap it up. For those of you online, I will do the same. I may also say 30 seconds if it doesn't appear that you can see me if you don't turn your camera on. And I don't know if you're observing us or not. So, but otherwise it will be the same. It'll be a wave at 30 seconds. So you know that it's time to wrap it up. We have set aside what we believe will be plenty of time for everyone to make a public comment, but we are going to stick to the 2 minutes in order to give time for the commissioners then to sit and deliberate on the information that you have provided for us tonight. I don't have a sign-up list for those in the room. Sarah, is that still in the back?
It is, Madam Chair.
Okay. I'll have you bring that up after Rachel's presentation. That way other latecomers can sign up. Okay, perfect. So that as setting the stage, with that, I am going to invite Rachel, our Chief Administrative Officer, to provide some background information on the ordinance itself before we actually open the public hearing. Rachel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that's as far as I know. It's only for was it tape?
Just get to the phone.
Presentation day.
That's not me giving you.
A little bit more. It's taped on under the table.
Oh, yes, big one. I think we have more to
I
get.
don't think there's much more to give.
Oh, but that's good. That's good. Well, Okay, so I thought it'd be helpful to provide some background of how the TLT administered and taxed before we got into the proposed provisions. So the guiding laws for the transient lodging tax in Tillamook County, we have our state statutes and county ordinances. State statutes is ORS 320.300 through 320.365. And two county ordinances, Ordinance 74, we're currently on Amendment 2, and Ordinance 75, and we are on Amendment 2 with that one as well. I'm going to review the statutes that are relative to the proposed revisions tonight. The first one is 320.300 sub 9, which defines a tourism-related facility as a conference center, convention center, or visitor information center, or other improved real property that has a useful life of 10 plus years and has a substantial purpose of supporting tourism or accommodating tourist activities. ORS 320.350 sub 6 states at least 70% of the revenues from local TLT shall be used for the purposes described in subsection 5A, which is tourism promotion or tourism-related facilities, or sub C, which is financing debt of tourism-related facilities. Additionally, no more than 30% of the net revenue from TLT may be used for the purpose described in subsection 5B, which is funding city or county services. Ordinance 74 was originally approved by the voters in November of 2013, and taxation began in January of 2014. It imposed a countywide tax of 10% and included a not to exceed credit of up to 9% for cities. The distribution set forth in that ordinance stated that 30% would go to general fund expenses administering the TLT and public works. The majority of that 30% does go to public works. And additionally, the 70% per statute would go to tourism promotion and tourism related facilities. That is the ordinance that we are proposing to amend that is before the commissioners. Ordinance 75 is not proposed, it does not have any proposed amendments at this time, so it will still be Amendment 2. And it sets forth how the tax is implemented, collection duties. It establishes a tax review committee, a contracting entity, which is the Tillamook Coast Visitors Association. And lastly, it describes how the revenues received from TLT are implemented or distributed for various projects. Slide. A summary of the current taxation. There's 3 in Tillamook County. The first one is through the state of Oregon, which the county has no control over. That's 1.5% across the board. The current county tax, which is imposed by Ordinance 74 of 10%. Again, with the credit to the cities. Currently, the county receives 1% from all the cities. And then the cities have varying taxes, 9% or 10%, bringing a total range of 11.5 to 12.5%. Slide. So as you may have heard in various county meetings over the last year, the county's been actively seeking to diversify and increase revenue sources. And the TLT has been identified as an opportunity for that. An increase of TLT does require voter approval, pursuant to ORS 203-055. There are lots of legislative efforts that happen every year to change what we call the 70-30 split of how much can go to promotion and how much the county has discretion to put towards where it would like. The county has no control over that split, but there are efforts that the commissioners and others are working on to adjust that state law. The board has been having discussions on this proposed increase in earnest since last April. And late summer and fall, there were conversations going on with city mayor and managers regarding the increase. Getting into the actual revisions, there are 2 types of revisions generally that are being proposed. One is regarding the tax itself, the amount, and the other is how the new revenue, as we'll call it, is proposed to be distributed. So everything in white is currently language that is in the existing adopted ordinance. And regarding the tax, in this section, there are two places where language is proposed to be revised. In sub A, an increase from 10% to 15%, and in sub B, increasing the credit from 9 to 14% to keep with what is currently happening of the county receiving up to a maximum of 1%, depending on how much the cities have imposed for their own taxation. But regarding the revenue, again, everything in white is what is currently in the adopted ordinance. And we have, for ease, decided to separate the current tax of 10% and how it's distributed separately from the new money. The board wants to honor the prior Board of Commissioners decision and voter approval in locking in that amount that's currently going to roads. And so in this proposed amendment, there is a difference of how the original 10%, the first 10% of the tax is being distributed, and the new money, the new 5%. So there are no changes to how the first 10% will be distributed, still 30% to roads and general fund expenses and 70% to tourism promotion and facilities. There's a clarification in sub A that says the first 10% to set up how the next section reads. So this is all new language that is proposed for the new 5%. So for the new 5%, we still required that 70% of that goes to tourism promotion and facilities. And the language in sub I and sub double I are the same as the first 10%. So there's no changes there. The biggest change for the new 5% is that of the 30% that the county has discretion, like it has discretion over the first 30% that's going to roads, is it will be distributed three ways. 80% to the sheriff's office for public safety services, 10% to the communications department, that's the radio communications department for public safety emergency communication system. And to clarify, there was a radio bond that passed at the last election for the construction of a new system. That bond is not intended to pay for maintenance. These funds are to help support maintenance of the new system, not the construction of a new system. So this isn't a double dip if it appears like that, because we are proposing to fund a radio system out of these funds. They're for different purposes. And lastly, 10% of the new 30% would support the emergency management department fund for emergency management services. And the last proposed additional language is that the revenues provided for the sheriff's office, emergency management, and public communication services, is that those would be an offset of the general fund. So to be clear, any funds going to those three county departments, those are all general fund departments. So any TLT revenues going to those departments are meant to be an offset, not in addition to. What? This is a summary of the current taxation and what the new taxation would result in. So the cities stay the same unless they choose to increase on their own jurisdiction. County tax would go from 10 to 15%, and then the county tax credit would go from up to 9% to up to 14%. Slide. And then similarly, updating the table that you saw previously, state stays the same at 1.5%. The county changes from 15% in unincorporated areas. And then the cities went from 1% increased with the 5%. And this contemplates the cities not changing their tax. We assumed they would, but upon adoption, this is how this would look. But presumably the cities would increase their tax, which would increase the city column and reduce the county column down to likely 1%. And then I was just going to point out, and then the totals across increased to 16.5% across. And then a summary of what I was describing for how the revenues would be distributed. So the original 10% stays the same, 70 to promotion and facilities, 30% to the county's expenses administering the TLT program and roads public works. New 5%, same 70% to promotion and facilities. And then of the new 30%, 80% to the sheriff's office, 10% to the radio system for maintenance, and 10% to emergency management. This is where we are in the process. There were 2 town hall meetings about a week and a half ago here at the port. Those were public outreach meetings with some stakeholders. We are now in the ordinance hearing, public hearing process that's required for statute. We've noticed the meetings in the public, in the Headlight Herald and other locations. This is the first of 3 public hearings. And sorry, there's been a change. This is today, we had 3 hearings. There was a slight change at the first public hearing this morning. The first public hearing was continued to tonight. So technically we only have 2 public hearings, but we are here tonight at the one that states on the screen, the second public hearing. And then there'll be a third and final second hearing. Sorry, I didn't update the slides. On February 12th at 10 a.m. as part of the Board of Commissioners meeting room, as part of the Board of Commissioners meeting. And that is when the board would consider the ordinance for adoption. If the board considers the ordinance, if the board adopts the ordinance, it would not become effective until after voter approval at the May election. And as currently drafted, if the voters approve it in May, the taxation would begin in July of 2025. Lastly, this is the election timeline that sets forth the different stages that the board has to consider different items to submit to the clerk's office. The election is May 20th. And again, the taxation would begin July 1st. You can take any questions or you can open the public hearing.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any questions, commissioners, before we go to the public hearing? Thank you, Paige.
No.
Okay, perfect. Then we are going to go ahead and open this public meeting. Our public hearing at 5:47. I'm going to get the list of commenters in the room. And online went dark.
Oh, the TV probably turned on.
Oh, it's still on.
And how do we fix it? It is. We just turned the TV back on.
Yeah, that's.
There's a weird timing.
So for those of you online, you can't see this, but the TV goes dark after a certain period of time. It goes to sleep. So we can take a second in the room here to get the TV back on so we can coordinate our comments between the two.
They can see us, we just can't see
Right.
them.
See?
There it goes.
Make sure it's set still.
There we go. Okay.
Commissioner, were you be able to do that with the remote?
That's the. It shouldn't happen again. It usually only happens one time.
So yes. So I will reiterate for those online who would like to make public comment, please raise your hand and then we will call you in the order of your raised hands online. So I can see there are 2 hands through. Thank you. So please, those online who would like to make comment, go ahead and raise your hand at this time to get into the queue. I do have a sign up for those in the room. So we're going to go ahead and start with 2 folks in the room. It looks like I have Bill and Kathy Stout. If you'd like to come up to the table. Yep, right up here. And then we will take online following them, numbers 1 and 2 with their hand raised. So you are on deck, so to speak.
What is this?
That is the microphone that we need you to use so folks online can hear
A
you.
flashlight.
So hopefully it's working. So you'll need to make sure that it is on and let's make sure we can hear you.
Okay. On.
You might have to hold it a little
You have to get
closer.
it very close.
There you go. That's
Okay.
perfect. And you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
I have 2, she has 2.
Yes, correct.
we own the Twin Rocks Motel. I need to say
Could you
that.
identify yourself, please, for the record as you start?
Yeah, Bill Stout, Twin Rocks Motel, owner of that. We've owned that since 1977, 78. So we've seen a lot going on down here. The thing I want to bring up is doing this at 50% is a huge increase in 1 year. If we could see it go 2%, 2%, 1%, something like that, and just have that load in all at one time with the schedule on it, that would be very nice. The other thing for us, if Rockaway, we're 1 block off of city limits of Rockaway. If Rockaway does not increase theirs, then we are at a disadvantage because we're paying 50%, our people will pay 50% more in taxes than next door. So that's something to consider. It's unequitable. So we'd like to, see something on that, some help there. The other thing is the unintended consequences of what something like this does to people. And I think in the last discussion, someone raised the question that when people come down, they look at the total package of a night's stay in a unit. And this tax will increase that dramatically. And so what they're going to say, we're going to say, rather than maybe spend 3 nights, we're going to spend 2 nights. And we're going to have to eat food inside the unit we're staying at. So we're not going to spend as much money as outside. So you raise your hand.
30 seconds.
Okay.
Please wrap up.
To wrap this up. So those are the things I want to say. She'll say something. The one other thing I want to say is, and I made this last time, the road into the Twin Rocks goes right by our motel. We see this all the time. We see there's thousands of cars in a year's time that go on this road, and it's full of potholes. And it is part of people
Bill,
coming to see it. Okay,
Appreciate your
I'd
comment.
like to see some help on the road.
Thank you.
I have a question
You
about,
could identify yourself. for the
oh,
record.
I'm sorry, Kathy Stout.
Hold those.
I have 2 questions. One, this says that you project $3 to $3.5 million annually. I'm wondering how you came to that figure because the burden of this new tax lies on the unincorporated areas. We are having to pay the full 5%. Tillamook, the city of Tillamook is still at 1%. The city of Manzanita is still at 1%. It seems we're bearing the bulk of it. All the fees fall on the unincorporated areas. And I guess it's what Bill talked about too. There could be an impact on the small businesses in our town, the restaurants, the gift shops. If our guests are paying more to stay there, they have less discretionary income to go around town. Have fun. I think there could be unintended consequences to that. We do have one question. I hope this is appropriate. TLT funds were used to finish off the Nehalem swimming pool. Am I understanding that right?
Sorry,
You know of-
we're not going to answer during the comment period.
Oh, okay.
Please.
We know of no guest in town or in Rockaway or Twin Rocks, anywhere, that's going to go up to Nehalem and swim.
30 seconds, please.
So why were tourist funds used to complete a swimming pool that has no benefit to the tourist?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go online. And it looks like we have Julianne Hershey first and then Terry Warren. And it's in the room. If we want to go ahead and have Terry Horton and Martha Taylor, if you want to go ahead and come up to the table while we listen online. Let's start with Julianne Hershey. Julianne, can you turn your camera on and unmute yourself, please?
Hi, this is Tim Hershey, and
Thank
I'm here with my wife, Julianne Hershey. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can. You have 2 minutes, Tim.
Fantastic. Well, good evening, folks, and thanks for the opportunity to hear more context and also to weigh in with comments and questions. We've been owners of our second home in Manzanita since 2012. And my question is it going to be a discretionary spread? Or my comment is, how bleak is the transparency to the spread between tourism and facilities promotion versus debt associated of that 70% tourism portion that you're proposing? And I think many of us would like more transparency to that split. And then when this goes to vote, a question I'd like answered, is it true that only Tillamook County residents will be able to vote on this particular proposal? And some transparency around that, because I would also love to know what percentage of Tillamook County residents are short-term rental owners, because those are the ones that are most affected by this, are the STRs. And then finally, some transparency with regards to, for the tourism and facilities promotion, what's the source of this demand? What feedback are you collecting to drive the need for more financing of tourism facilities and promotion?
30 seconds, Tim.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, online, our next comment is Terry Warren.
Let's see if I can, there, I'm open. Hi, everybody. Thank you for holding this meeting and getting public input. I have two thoughts. One is, I think it's great that this money is going to, if we do this, part of it is going to the sheriff's department to help with tourist activities. I think that's necessary. I too wonder about the 70% for tourism activities. Is there a demand for that? Is that necessary? I'm just not clear about that. But I am in favor of funding the sheriff's department. The other part is that we live in Oceanside and we're an unincorporated area. And I am concerned about, are we in unincorporated areas, not just Oceanside, but are we going to bear the brunt of this? And how are we reassured that if this happens, that cities will be in the same boat that we are? Is there some requirement for that? Is it written down somewhere? I'm really interested in how that works, because right now it feels like those of us in unincorporated areas are really bearing the brunt of this. The other thing that I would like to say is that I think if you do this, that it is unfair to put this in place this summer, because a lot of us have places that have agreements that have been put in place for people staying in short-term rentals. And it feels like that's really so hard for people that have already made an agreement for a particular price. So I hope that if this does go into place, that you will consider that. It seems to me that the residents of Tillamook County that don't have short-term rentals might be very enthusiastic about this, and I understand.
Terry, can you wrap up for us, please?
Yes, I am done, but thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will go back to in the room, and it looks like I have Carrie Horton first.
It's Carol.
Carol, sorry.
Bad writing on my part. Sorry.
Or I said on my part, but you're a good pair.
I don't know how to do this. Okay, can you hear me? Is that good? Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay, like that. Okay. My name is Carol Horton. I own a home in Oceanside that my parents built 40 years ago. We have a long history there. And I do have a short-term rental license for that. So I come on both sides of this. I had two comments. I just wanted, to my perspective, the transient lodging tax is primarily tax that supports tourism and promotion and facilities. And I understand part of it comes back to the county, and it's really important to you all to get that money to support the sheriff and emergency services and all that. But the fact of the matter is that if this increase passes, it'll increase 70% of that money goes towards tourism, and that will increase by 50% as well. There's a tremendous amount of money going towards tourism, tourism promotion, and tourism facilities. And I guess I'm wondering, do the people of Tillamook really want that? That's a lot. And that brings me to my second comment is I'd like to address how that 70% will be spent, the increased amount.
30 seconds.
All right.
Sorry.
I would like to know if there's a strategic plan for how all this money is going to go into promoting tourism. And I would really like to see some of the money come back proportionally to the communities that have the short-term rentals that are feeding into the TLT. Because in Oceanside, we kind of feel like we don't really get that money coming back to our needs. So
Thank you.
that's what I want to say.
Thank you.
And I'm Martha Taylor of Wheeler on the Bay Lodge. So I was at the stakeholder meeting a couple weeks ago, and it had been stated that Cannon Beach was at a 16% tax, but they are not at a 16%. It is 11%, and then they knew that they couldn't do a 16% tax, so they decided on the prepared food tax. And so my question is, if Cannon Beach, the fancy ass place of Cannon Beach, can't do a 16%, how can you expect us in little cowpoke town, Tillamook County, to be doing this much? That's a huge thing. And imagine what Cannon Beach had to go through in order to do that prepared food tax thing. There must have been quite an uproar with that. And also at the stakeholder meeting, it was asked that the Tillamook TLT office gather the info so we actually can see what's going on with the occupancy records, because it stated that the money is up, but every person in the room was saying that occupancy is down. And so we really need to know what's going on in order to figure out what we are actually looking at. Another thing is assuming that the cities will not raise their taxes, and so they have to. And so with the city raising, it's going to be more than 16%. And then the last is how much is actually in the tourist fund and what are the proposed projects?
Thank you,
And do
Martha.
we need more?
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back online, and our next two online. Let's see, Dana McCullough first, and then Nathan.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can, Dana. Thank you. 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I've written a letter that explains more for the commissioners, but basically I have two asks. One is that when you're considering this tax, you consider variances and perhaps a progressive tax. For example, some of us never intended to earn money just to pay for the cost of an oceanfront home. And right now I have to supplement the cost of my beach house, which I want to keep for future generations. And it comes out of fixed income and Social Security. So I really feel this, and there must be others in my category. I also have to pay for several permits and a state permit for sand distribution. Everyone benefits from us using our thousands of dollars literally every year to, in our D cell, push out the sand and plant the grass as required by the state, which never lasts, not because people walk on it, because of the ocean. This benefits everybody else, but we paid for it. It seems like we ought to be able to get some kind of variance for having those differences, because renters of homes there are not one size fits all. There's a big difference in short-term renters, and it would be good if our leaders considered that difference. Additionally, there's another very serious problem, and that is the way they're requiring us, and we need your help. Nobody's listening. The way they require us to push out the sand creates a big bank. People walking there in the wintertime can get caught between waves and that bank. It's dangerous. I've done it, and logs come right up next to the bank, which is because we have to push it straight out and just dump it over the edge. It is.
Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you. Your 2 minutes is up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Nathan Powell. Nathan.
Hi, this is Shira and Nathan Powell. We are STR owners in Pacific City. It's our family's dream to continue the legacy that they've had since the 80s in owning beach property, and we short-term rental it to supplement that cost as well. We have 5 points today. The first one is that we believe that the 5% increase in tax would not be absorbed by our renters who have already pre-booked through December, because Airbnb had a contracted rate that they agreed to when they made that reservation. So essentially you would be pulling that 5% out of our pockets. Our second concern is about the 50% increase in 1 year. We also think it's a very rapid increase for consumers to absorb. Our third concern is that as Pacific City property owners, we already pay a significant subsidy just by paying our water and sewer bill. Number 4 is that we believe that at this time in the economy, people's budgets are constrained. We have already seen a reduction in bookings this year compared to last year. Is there data to prove that this would actually achieve the desired outcomes? We seem to be following the Portland model, which over the past 5 years has increased their local taxes by 83%. The outcome of that has been a 470% decrease on economic activity and investment in the Portland metro area. Why would Tillamook County's proposed increase of 50% not also expect similar effects? And lastly, if the county is looking for more revenue,
30 seconds.
Why did you limit the STR licenses? That's it.
Thank you. Okay, I do have 2 other people signed up in the room who already gave comment today, so we're going to go ahead and skip over the 2 in the room who've already commented at this morning's hearing. We'll continue online. So online next is Jeffy. I'm going to say it wrong. Mercero.
Mercero.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jeffy. 2 minutes, please.
Okay. I am a property manager of about 60 homes in Manzanita. We are very, very, very concerned about this 50% increase. We are looking at Clatsop County and Lincoln County being at 12.5, and we have beautiful beaches all along Oregon coast. They will not just come to Manzanita because we have a beach. We heard that there was only one study that Nan spoke of that was about the TLT affecting future bookings, and that had to do with one reference, and there was not much information given to us about how that was studied. The only indication was that it was only affecting hotels with conferences. We'd like to see where the study of future bookings has been for the Tillamook County on this increase. Occupancy, again, we haven't seen any answer to that yet. I'm hoping that the questions that we've given will have some answer before the adoption date. I don't know when that's going to happen for us to get answers to these. Is there any possibility that the 70%, because the sheriff's funds have to cover the tourism, and everyone keeps discussing that the sheriffs have to work much harder when the tourists are here, can that somehow be related to the tourism money out of the 70%? And if someone could get creative and make that happen, it would be really helpful. Now that we know that the cities are
30
getting
seconds,
that,
Jeffy.
Sorry, thank you. The cities are getting that same increase, and they're going to be allowed to absorb some of it for themselves. We now are going to see a ton more money coming in than we originally thought that this 5% was even going to do. And now it just seems like it's being completely greedy of the county to cause this literal hardship on our business. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next online. It says Manzanita as the name.
Hi, my name is Danielle. I'm a lodging tax operator. I own a vacation rental company in Manzanita. First off, thank you to the county for allowing us to speak out in regards to this. I have a couple of points. I'm as you can imagine, I'm against the tax. From what I can tell, when you pass something this substantial, with it being this high at a 5%, 50% increase, typically impact studies are done to see how this is going to impact our county. And frankly, I feel like that none of that's been done. And I feel like that's really, really, really affecting not only our homeowners, our second homeowners, but it's affecting our small businesses. It's affecting locals, all of the employees that we have, all of it. And it seems to me the county's taking things way too lightly and not taking this very seriously, and we're an easy scapegoat. So that's kind of how I feel personally. And has the county thought of putting resources towards working with the state of Oregon to change that 70% marketing tourism amount that they have that's obviously not being used? I just feel like we have so much opportunity there and nobody's attempting to try to figure that out. And
30 seconds, please, Danielle.
Thank you. My other option is my other comment is the county, Tillamook County would be the highest that I can find on the Oregon coast. And I just feel like it would be, and again, the Powells said this perfectly, you guys capped and restricted how many rentals you can have. But now we're going to add the tax on top of that. And it's like pouring salt into a wound. It is not a smart idea.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Danielle.
Mhm.
Okay, up next is Hillary.
Hi, good evening. My name is Hillary Gibson. I'm a homeowner in Nescoin. Thank you, commissioners, for welcoming public comments this evening. I want to start by saying I fully support our sheriff and public safety. Unfortunately, I'm not confident that increasing the TLT is a solution for your budget shortfall, because we really need to fix how we got here in the first place. With the newly proposed TLT increase, when you consider the potential entire 15% TLT, only a small fraction of that goes to public safety. So for each $1,000 in TLT collected, $700 goes right back to tourism, while only $80 out of $1,000 would go to the sheriff's fund. STR owners, just like all homeowners in Tillamook County, are facing increases across the board. I already get pushback from guests on the current TLT of 10% to meet their budget, and I recently reduced the guests' rate by 10%. I'm not able to pass this cost along to guests, and ultimately it will come out of my pocket and have unintended consequences, such as decreasing my ability to hire local service providers for projects. So please do not raise the TLT. You are slowly strangling the golden goose of Tillamook County. And thank you for having me this evening. And also, if we have a moment to sometime answer the questions that all of the short-term rental owners and motel owners are asking, that would be wonderful, because we had the town halls, but
30
kind of
seconds,
turn into
Hillary.
public comment, and I've emailed questions, and when we don't get responses, that's really frustrating, because we're asking. I hear so many wonderful questions, great questions from everybody, but we're not hearing the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next online we have Bob Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners, as well. I'll be specific. I just want to suggest, I know this is, it sounds like the last meeting. I'd like to suggest moving forward that you may allocate more time to property managers who represent STR owners. I am a STR owner in Tierra del Mar. Nicole Twig represents me, as well as I believe 100 STR owners, more than 100. And I think 2 minutes is a disservice to somebody like Nicole. I would like to suggest moving forward that somebody in her capacity maybe gets more floor time, perhaps 4 or 5 minutes. I think in the last meeting, she was bringing up some excellent points in regard to rental rates and occupancy percentages last year versus this year, and how that affects some of the decisions that are coming down. Also, I think Hillary brought up an excellent point just now about answers. And if you could consider some of those points, but property managers that represent all of us, I think should be given more microphone time. I would like you to
30
people
seconds.
consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next online, we have. Okay, Michael, we can see you.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you as well. 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to make comment. I, like others, wanted to express my concern that a 50% increase in this particular taxation is very extreme. I'm really confused and concerned regarding the Tillamook County budget process as to why this extreme increase is being proposed, why it has to be proposed as a possible fix. And I would question if the Tillamook County budget is in that bad a shape and why. Because the state of Oregon has the 70-30 tourism split, there's no way to get around that right now. The TLT tax is a very inefficient way to supplement the local county budget constraints or budget deficits, or whatever the problem is. 70% to tourism and 30% local general fund requirements. That with this 5% increase, essentially only 1.5% is staying in the local general fund. And then even beyond that, I believe the net increase revenue to the county, if this passes, will not even be as high as described, because the county is essentially putting each city in the position that they would be stupid not to increase their local tax. The renters essentially have the same 16.5% cap, but are passing more on to the county instead of it staying locally in the city. And then lastly, like other people have said, the existing reservations that we already have in place as short-term rental owners for the second half of this year cannot be adjusted right now. So that essentially comes out of the operation of the short-term rental.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands online. So I'm going to give one last call, and I don't think there's anybody else that came in since we started the hearing that perhaps wanted to comment in the room and didn't get on the list. So let's just take 30 seconds more here and see if there's anyone who wishes to make comment. Okay, not hearing any. I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing.
I think I signed up on that thing someplace.
Okay, I don't have you on my list, but please do come up. There was a sign-in list that was, yeah, there was a, there was a happy to be here list, and there was a I would like to talk list. So come on. That's right. If you would identify yourself, please. You've got 2 minutes.
Barry Romano, 630 North Pacific. In my background is 60-some plus years in fire department, 35 as chief. To me, the county needs to work in their budget without trying to steal this money from the cities. What's going on? This is not necessary whatsoever. When I seen a part of it was going to sheriff's department, I just about blew my cool. That is, make them live within their budget. You guys are looking for free money and you're looking right on the back of the cities, and that's where it's coming from. End of story.
Thank you. Okay. And we've got one that's popped up on one. I can see Marina and David.
Hi, can you see me?
I can see if you would identify yourself, please, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, I'm Marina, Marina Westerdahl, and my husband and I own a short-term rental in Cape Mears. And just wanted to say 2 things just with those that commented that we've also seen a decrease in rentals, and we've also had to lower our nightly rate. And secondly, I also wanted to, at the last meeting, there was a mention of a budget. So I would also like to request that the county share a detailed budget with all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last call. We're really trying to keep it to one comment per person. Otherwise, it opens up the comments for everyone to have 2, and this is a continued hearing. So Annie, thank you very much. We do have your comments on the record. Thank you. Okay, with that, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:21 p.m. We will move into deliberation and definitions. Okay. Commissioners, we now have the opportunity to share our thoughts. Who would like to begin?
I'm happy to begin. Thank you. I'm happy to begin. Thanks everyone for being here in person and online. I will use a little bit of my time to try to answer a few of your questions. It's clear that there's a lot of confusion about the tax and how the tax would play out between unincorporated areas and cities. So I hope I can clarify that. The countywide tax is currently 10% countywide, period. And what would happen if we pass this as proposed, it would be 15% countywide. It wouldn't be above 15% countywide, other than the state 1.5. So the countywide tax would be 15%. So what that means is the cities, somebody mentioned this just a few minutes ago online. The cities, if the city is currently at 9% and they pay the county 1%, what would happen is they would very likely raise their tax accordingly. So they would be collecting 14%. And they would continue to give the county 1%. So, but they wouldn't go above that because if we vote on this ordinance as proposed, the cap would be 15. So it's not that people are going to be paying less in the city, like your neighbors are not. They're not going to be paying a lower tax in the city. It would be 15% countywide. And so the question is whether the cities would choose to raise theirs, and we assume that they would. So everybody would be at 15. So that's one question. Let's see. I want to, people have asked a lot of thoughtful questions, and I want to encourage you to email us those questions because we won't be able to answer all of them tonight. But what I'd like to say is that in the process of the town halls, 2 town halls that many of you attended, and the first part of this hearing this morning, I've absorbed a lot of information from you. I feel like I've learned a lot from you. I hear you loud and clear that the feeling is that a 5% increase all at once is too much. I hear that. And personally speaking for myself, I am willing to consider the idea of breaking it up. I think that's a good suggestion. Further, I'm willing to consider the idea of dropping it by 1%. I'm willing to consider the idea of 2% and 2%. So, I think that people are talking a lot about the 50% increase, which is accurate, but in fact is 5%. So, and 5% feels like too big of a jump to people. So I'm willing to consider 4. So 2 and 2. And moreover, we've learned a lot. I, speaking for myself, have learned a lot about the ways that all of the different things you have to pay. For example, if people are using Airbnb or Expedia or VRBO, we have learned that you pay a great deal just for them to do the booking, a lot. And maybe everybody in this room doesn't use those, but a lot of people do. We've heard from a lot of people who do. And so my fellow commissioner has a great proposal about that. And I'm not going to steal her thunder because it's a brilliant idea. But we hear you. We want you to know that we want your businesses to be successful. We need your businesses to be successful. We're not trying to hurt your businesses. So we're thinking about ways to help you, and we have some good ideas. And also we can reinvest TLT funds, the 70%. One of the questions a couple of people have asked is, what are we doing about the 70-30 split? Well, there have been, as Rachel mentioned in her presentation, there have been numerous attempts to change the 70-30 split, and that will be attempted again in this legislative session. And let's all keep our fingers crossed that it gets through committee. But the current the form that it's in now, as I understand it, is to propose changing it to 50-50 just in the small rural counties that are so heavily impacted by tourism. It wouldn't need to be changed across the state. There are a handful of counties like ours that are very heavily impacted by tourism. So that would help a lot. And but there's a lot of weight opposing it. There's tremendous weight opposing it. The Oregon Restaurant Lodging Association has told us that they would vehemently oppose it. So we'll just keep trying. And I think that there's a growing understanding about how tourism is impacting small communities. And as that grows, then maybe that will be able to change. But I'll be I'm not confident that it will get through this in this session, but I would be thrilled if it did. I'd be delighted to be wrong about that. So we can't count on that. So we need to do what we need to do now, and we want to work with you. We want to. A bunch of people asked about the 70%. We have made fabulous investments back into our community with the 70%. We've done all kinds of great things. And we try to talk about that a little bit in the town hall meetings, but there's been tremendous work done in Pacific City, for example, with the 70%. Mrs. Stout, I think, asked about the money for the NCRD pool. We did support the NCRD pool with 1.7 million in order to finish their project, and they had already collected something like, I don't remember the number, 15 million they'd already collected. So it was just to be able to finish their project. It was more than shovel ready. They're almost done. And that made sense because tourists are coming to North County who use that facility currently. They use the old pool currently, a lot of them, just trust me. And because we have the data. And so it makes sense as a tourist facility. It currently is a tourist facility. The old pool, the new one will be a tourist facility, but it's also a tremendous investment in the community. So that's how we have tried to invest the 70% is in ways that not only benefit tourists when they come here, but also benefit people who live here. And so it's been we have a lot of good ideas. Somebody asked if we have a strategic plan. And we have not a completed strategic plan. We do have a plan, but we haven't completed it because we want to wait and see if the voters pass this. And if the voters pass this, then we want some of you to participate with us in that planning. So, there are a lot of, there has been tremendous good work we've been able to do for Tillamook County with the 70%. It hasn't all just been, heads and beds and billboards. It's really, we've done great things here that we would never have had the money to do. So that 70% has benefited many, many people in Tillamook County and many visitors who come. So I think I'm gonna pause here and let my fellow commissioners talk.
I'm taking a break.
That's okay. I'm Paul, the newest commissioner. I echo everything my colleague said. In fact, she stole a lot of my ideas, but I will expand on some of them. One of the questions is what the 70% would be used for. Now, we have been discussing that. There's a lot of things, and I want to address a couple of them. One of them is a much more robust code enforcement. And all across, so we've taken surveys of local people. The biggest complaints are traffic, garbage, parking issues on streets in the villages, code enforcement. One of the problems is and that's the thing, the 70% can pay for code enforcement, and we intend to do that. So we've had talks about using it for the STR complaint, code enforcement, and other things. So it has been used for that, and Manzanita uses their 70% for code enforcement. So that's part of that. The other thing we can use it to build parking lots. In an Oceanside, for an example, there was discussion out of the village to get a parking lot out of the village that may be connected by a trail. These are just ideas, but we don't have the money to do these things. I'm a guy that wants to use all that money to help locals out in a way, because the locals want the same thing the tourists do. They want clean walking paths. They want connectivity to the beach. And I don't want to talk about your idea too, but when she gets to it, there's.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, one of the things we've talked about is really a lot of it. I'm glad to hear that you two aren't affected by this, but it's the predatory booking agents and agencies and companies these are predatory. They're charging. I have friends that have STRs, and they've shared their books with me, and it's disturbing to me to see the breakdown of charges. We're talking way more than 15%. We're talking 30, 35%. And I'm going to let you in on something. The other thing that we're looking at doing, using the 70%, is to make them more accountable. Because we don't get, and this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to share it with you because I couldn't believe it. We don't get clear accounting from these Airbnbs, VRBOs, we get a check. Here's the taxes we collected. We've been asking, we've had our county council sending letters requesting, demanding that we get it. So my hope is that we can use some of that 70% to pressure them, because what's happening is they're stealing money from the STR owners. They're raising their fees. I know that if I speak out of line, Sarah, let me know. But one of the things is we give a discount if you pay your TLT taxes early. Some of these booking agencies are keeping that 5%. It's a 5% discount over the total amount of tax, and they're keeping that. So really, we have a common enemy there that is, like Commissioner Bell said, we want you to thrive. We want you to not be buried. Yes, we need some of that money to help with infrastructure. But any given day, like any water rescue call, I'm trying to get the fire chiefs to give me numbers, but I was a fire rescue captain, and I was a water rescue captain. And I can tell you that 90% of our water rescue calls were visitors. And there's options for them to charge. It's very difficult for them to. You could speak to the amount of calls, medical calls during the summer are visitors. We are trying to, the budget is in trouble because of a lot of reasons. One of them is timber revenues. We just got our quarter timber revenues today. We're $1 million lower than what was predicted by ODF and that we budgeted for. So we're about $1 million short just on that one thing. And so out of a general fund that's $27 million, that's quite a bit of money that we have to try to make up. So we are trying to be creative with this. We don't want to burden the SDRs, but
the visitor industry is an industry, and my big push is trying to expand. How do we get the day visitors? One of the things is expanding our parking lots and day use passes at boat ramps, because we do need to capture some more of their money, because it should not be on the burden. It should not burden all of the STR owners. I understand that. I don't want to take too much time. The other thing I would say is the 50-50, we have both of our legislatures that are from Tillamook are fighting to trying to push this through. And they're hitting a wall like they do every year. Honestly, I think if a group like this got together and let Orla know that, hey, we'd rather see 50-50 than raising our taxes. I mean, these are things that would help us. We've been trying, but there's a wall there. So we're trying to be creative using 70%. I want to, I just want to build things, tsunami evacuation towers that the residents can use, but also the visitors can use. So I think that's what I wanted to address. Hand it over to you. Okay. Oh, one thing about the booking agency was we would figure out a way through Dan to maybe have our own booking third-party kind of collection for your bookings that would not be charging those ridiculous predatory fees. And that was the commission's purpose.
Thank you. Oh gosh, for all that credit. I hope it turns out to be a good idea. Maybe it's not a good idea. That's why they're giving me credit. No, I want to thank everyone for your time and your comments. And I was able to attend one of the stakeholder meetings and read the notes from the other one. And there were a lot of things that really struck me. And so as we look at what we want to do moving forward, I think those are important. One of the pieces that struck me was definitely the reservations that are already in place, and the fact that you can't change contracts. And so I think that's something we need to have in our thought process as we think about this ordinance, if we move it forward to vote, and think about what timeline or what mechanism we can use to not have it fall all to the owners at that point. So I do think there's something there that we should be thinking about and looking at. I also hear the increased expenses, which is where that concept of a local booking came from. What I understood talking with some folks is that, this can be as much as 30% of your rate can go to that booking company. That's a huge amount, right? We're asking for 5% to hopefully help pay for some local things, while 30% of it gets siphoned off by Airbnb. That's a problem. It's a problem I would love to see us work together to address locally, so that the transient lodging tax you're already paying could actually help support you getting your bookings here in Tillamook County and not having to pay that rate. So I think there's a partnership there for us that I hope we can work out. And I have talked to Nan about it. Nan's starting to do some research to determine if there is a booking engine that we can get access to, that we can create as a local opportunity for Tillamook County specifically, that wouldn't cost you what Airbnb and others cost you. So I hear you, and I want to help solve that problem, because that's a significant and serious problem that could make a huge difference for all of you. One of the other pieces is, there's a lot of talk about reduced occupancy and people aren't coming. Let's use our TLT the way other places do, which is to do advertising on your behalf. We haven't done that for quite some time. We've really shifted to a destination management model. And a lot of that's been I think the information received from folks who do live here full time, saying, we felt a little overrun by visitors, but I'm open to and interested again in that partnership conversation with our short-term rental operators to say, can we create a marketing campaign specific to coming and staying in our short-term rentals? Let's do something that just really highlights why Tillamook County is the place to do that. I want to help you with that work. I think that was an important piece. I do think we're all in a bit of an interesting situation with short-term rentals, doing some research, and thank you, Commissioner Fournier actually found a great resource that kind of gave us some background about what is the short-term rental industry across the nation doing right now? What's happening? Everybody is kind of dealing with that fallout from the pandemic, where everything went way up, and now we're all seeing that come down, right? We don't have the demand that we had. People aren't willing to pay the price that they paid. So how do we, again, work together to generate demand for Tillamook County? What they're saying is that 24 should be the leveling off point, and 25 is the place where we can begin to grow again. Let's work together to make that happen, so that a 5% increase for Tillamook County's services is not something that puts a huge impact into your budget, right? TLT is being collected. Let's use it to help support the industry along with how we help support the community. So those were I think my big takeaways from all of your comments were that your concerns and your challenges are real. Your concerns and your challenges are impacting how you are able to support your short-term rentals, whether you're doing it as a business or whether you are doing it to maintain a family home that you've had on the coast forever, and you want to keep for future generations. We agree. We spent the time in the short-term rental committee. I sat for 18 months with the short-term rental committee doing the changes to that ordinance and heard repeatedly the importance of our small operators and agreed. And that's why we made some of the changes we made in that ordinance to support our small operators, right? We are not open for industry to come buy all of these. We don't want that. So how do we partner again? How do we work together, use the transient lodging tax to make this work? So again, I think those were big takeaways for me from what I heard from everyone. I know there are more comments about facilities, how we spend the money. There is a real focus on trying to make sure that when we spend the money, it is a shared benefit, both for our visitors and for our local residents. I mean, that's really important. That's how we have the communities that we want to have, right? And so I think that as we look at facilities, trying to make sure that whatever we invest in helps both. And I've been calling myself parking potties trash commissioner, because one of the things that really, I came in during the pandemic and I heard so much about the lack of facilities in those ways for tourists, and really looking at how do we invest these dollars to better support what tourists need, because you know what? It keeps them out of the hair of the locals, and that's important. So trying again to create the communities that we most want to have, it requires us to work together. It requires us to recognize and support the industry that you all are here talking about tonight. And it requires your industry to realize, respect, and support the county in which you operate. We have to do this together. So I think that's what I would say as a backdrop. Commissioners, I think this is an opportunity that we have to discuss if we would like to make any changes to the draft ordinance. And I think at this point, I'm just going to go back to this end of the table. You made a couple of recommendations or suggestions of things you're interested in. Would you like to take that conversation a little further?
I'd like to talk about splitting up the increase. I'd like to talk about reducing it. And so 2% this year and 2% next year. And I would like to talk to Commissioner Scar's point earlier about how to account for, how to work with people who already have contracts for the days after, if we pass the tax now, they've already had the contracts, they can't charge people for those 2%. So I don't know how we would do that exactly, but maybe we could ask those people to provide us with documentation that shows that they had X number of guests before it was passed, assuming voters pass it. So if they had the reservations before May 20, then I'm not sure how to do it. I'm sure Rachel always has better ideas about these things. Maybe she'll have a better idea how to do that, but I would like us to at least talk about how to do that.
Thank you. I would agree. I think what I'm hearing is we all agree that lowering is a good idea, maybe doing a phasing. And I definitely agree with preserving the reservations. I'm not sure how you do that either, but I'm sure there's a mechanism in place for that. So I would agree with what you said. I would agree with what you said. I don't know how you feel about lowering in case you're going to fix.
No, I'm happy to look at the phase in. I think that's a good approach to address the concerns that 5% all at once is just too much. It's too big of a jump. I do think that we need to acknowledge and recognize that every time we want to raise this, it has to go to the voters, and it is a huge effort and a huge lift. And if we can build in the increase over time in a way, and you mentioned this another meeting where Commissioner about we build in an increase over time so that it's something that is, we don't get behind, don't get behind over time. And I don't know the right way to do that, but I think there's looking at that piece of it. So if we do 2 and then 2 again, I think the question is, when do we do the second 2 and what comes after the second 2? What is the expectation? How do we set a course going forward that recognizes that as a community, our industry is changing. We are losing our timber industry and we're losing the certainty of that at the state level. We have plenty of other meetings where we've talked about the Habitat Conservation Plan and what the state choices have done to our timber revenue. But when you look at how our government is funded locally, we got our property taxes, which rise at 3% per year, and we can't change that. The state does not seem inclined to give us any additional revenue. So that's what we get, along with what fees we charge. And in the past, when our tax rate was set, we had a significant timber revenue that meant our tax rate was lower. Now we're in a position where that timber is going away, our tax rate's not going up, and we have to find another mechanism that we can use to help support our county's government so that we all can have your business here because we'll have what we need, right? It's benefits all of us. And unfortunately, whether it feels good or doesn't feel good, the tourism industry is what's growing here. And we do have a limited amount of ways that we can tap into that. We're working on how to tap into day visitors. I know Commissioner Fournier has a number of ideas, but I just think we need to be thoughtful and aware that at this point, the mechanism that's on the table and the mechanism that's here is this one. And if we can reduce the cost to short-term rentals on the other side, this tax opportunity now at 2%, 2% in another year or 2 years, perhaps a 2% after that, that sets us in that course to say, we're gonna give ourselves the opportunity not to have to come back here 4 years from now and have all these same conversations and go back to the voters. So yeah.
The other thing with the 2%, I mean, I think, I mean, you might not like that number, and I understand that, but it basically equates to a 2% increase for the 10 years this law's been, the tax has been there. So it's kind of a reasonable, I think it's a reasonable first jump. I mean, I don't know either when the next one would be. And I do hope that we can figure out ways with the booking or some other ways of helping so that it feels like a much larger or a much smaller increase because you're making more on the other end. And the idea is to keep more money in your pockets, but so that's why I'm hopeful about this.
The commissioners, right now, we're talking about 2 and 2. So that would be 2 the first year. When does the second 2 fall in your thought process? Since you put that on the table, I'll let you flesh it out. If you don't mind.
I think 2 this year and 2 next year.
So that would bring us up to 14 over a 2-year period.
What do you think? Before you slide it over.
Just want to keep everybody having equal voice. I don't want to take it since I'm in the middle. I'm happy with 2 this year and 2 next year. I think that gives a more gradual approach. I think it gives us time to do the work to try to come up with whether it is a booking opportunity, better marketing to support our businesses, to really take a look and see if we can make sure that Tillamook County is bending the curve in the same way that we're looking at nationally. And I guess what I would ask all of our short-term rental operators is to be hopefully ready to come back to the table in conversation with that work and to really work to step into what we hope will be the partnership that's going to get us all where we want to go.
I also want to say, I know there's been a concern because we have raised SCR fees have gone up, and I started looking and doing more research about that. One of the struggles and it's going to be happening in other departments is that Tillamook County hasn't raised a lot of the fees in the fee structure in a lot of departments for decades. And as you know, everything's gone up. We're in negotiations with a large union now, and we want to make sure that people are getting paid at least market. So everything has gone up for us too. We're a big business. Nobody wants to hear that. I don't like paying more for my parking pass or my fees. I just went to the community development the other day, and I told you I was going to call you and got a wonderful talking to about what I can do with my property. But there was a raised fee for this. But I just want people to understand that we're trying not to do these big jumps, and so that's why we're recognizing if we can tone this one down, but we're doing it across the board because it hasn't happened, and we need to keep up with it. So
I hear that is a yes, you would be in a consensus, not obviously 2 and then a following year 2, with a goal of working with Rachel and potentially Sarah around what do we do about existing regulations or reservations, sorry. Is there something within the ordinance that can be done with that? Anything else relating to changes we would want to recommend that be made to the ordinance? Because what will come back, just for those of you listening for process, is that on the 12th of February. So we would make those changes to ordinance that would be posted as soon as possible, which gives the community a chance to look at what's posted. And then on February 12th, we come back and we have an additional public hearing at the end of which we may choose to adopt the ordinance. We may not. We may choose for more public comment or more conversation or change. So where we are right now is, and I'm looking at our attorney to make sure we're on track.
Just remember that we got basically no time if you're gonna get it on the ballot
Correct.
in May.
Thank you. And for those online, the reminder was just that to get it on the ballot on May, we really need to make the adoption on the 12th of February. So we have some work to do coming out of this meeting. What I will also share is that there was a comment and there were a lot of questions asked and not answers given. While we're in this process of public meetings, we actually are not able to go forth and answer questions and talk with people about potential changes to the ordinance when we're not sitting at this table in front of the cameras with everyone with us. So just kind of an FYI on that. So the consensus I'm hearing is 2+2, looking for a way to respect current reservations without placing that firmly in the laps of the owners. Any other comments or changes that we need to talk about that we want to direct before we end this meeting?
I just want to say one thing. There was some comments, I think it was on via email, that this felt really rushed. And I'll be honest, I had this conversation. I felt it was rushed for me. But I'm new coming in and I wasn't really aware. They have been talking about this since last April. And they've been wanting to jump on this. And so I feel more comfortable with the fact that this has been thought of deeply. And I just want to put that out there because I did get a comment about that. And I initially felt that.
Thank you. And to folks who were asking about the budget, the budget is online. You're welcome to look at the budget online. I have a question for Bill, and this question came to me via email today, and it was, would it be possible to tax local short-term rental owners at a different rate than non-local short-term rental owners? I'm assuming the answer is no.
You're correct.
Okay. I said I would ask. Okay.
Yeah, that question has come up often around the parking and such as well. And unfortunately with tax, it is required that it be uniform across the board. We are not able to give a locals discount. So I think that's a great thing to talk about because it's something we would love to be able to do and to recognize. The state is very clear for taxation that that's not an option. So there are many things that the state is very clear that is just not an option that we would love to do. So
can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Thanks.
I'll look and see if there's any other questions we maybe didn't answer. Okay.
So there are, with the TLT money that we invest with Tillamook Coast Visitors Association, there's marketing money available for your businesses. So we know that some short-term rental owners don't do their own marketing because they assume that Airbnb is doing it or VRBO, et cetera. But there's marketing money available for your businesses. And I was talking to Nan about that because we've heard from lots of folks who've said their reservations are down. And she said, rarely to never does anybody ask for marketing money, but it's available. So maybe we need to do a better job of marketing to you to let you know, but that money is available. It could be for a website, it could be for signage, it could be for any number of things it's been available for 10 years. So please contact Tillamook Coast Visitors Association. You can get on the website and look at it because the 70%, as we're reinvesting it back into tourism facilities and promotions, that includes tourism businesses. So please take advantage of that resource.
I think there was another question, which I will go ahead and answer the best what I can do. Only Tillamook County voters vote on this. This was Tim Hershey who's online who asked that question. Yes. If you're not registered to vote in Tillamook County, unfortunately, you will not be able to vote on this. That's, again, the state of Oregon sets up how all of the voting works, and you are required to choose a place of residence and prove it's your residence in order to vote there. So Tillamook County residents do have agency over what happens in Tillamook County through the voting process. There was another question, I think it was Tim as well, that asked how many short-term rental owners live in Tillamook County, and I think we just got that number that is about 11% of our ownership is in Tillamook County, somewhere around that. So that would be about 89% of short-term rental ownership. So when we send renewal materials, et cetera, we send them out of county. And so I think that, it is what it is. But in terms of when you buy a second home or a vacation home somewhere, you don't actually get a vote in Oregon. And it is a large industry that is not based in Tillamook County that way. And many of those folks do use local management companies. So I do want to reflect that there are many people that do support our economy locally, even though they don't actually live here. So that was another question that it was unanswered. Commissioners, any other questions that stuck out to you that maybe we want to answer? Not at this time. Yeah.
I think I'm good.
Okay, I think we've answered the big ones. All right, I think we are potentially ready to wrap this meeting up. So before I do that, Rachel, do you have questions for us to clarify anything that we may have provided you guidance on tonight?
Any questions, just maybe a statement. I agree with the concern about the reservations, and I think the language is simple to put in. It would be more the logistics of ensuring those are met and what all that looks like. That might be a little bit trickier. So just I don't know what we're gonna be able to come up with that, but we will certainly try.
Maybe we can ask the public too, if they have any ideas. Anybody online has any ideas?
Go to the public comments.
Public comments, and I think Sarah, because her department ultimately is responsible for the collections, will have to let us know what is possible and what is not possible. So I think that's something that is a great call out, Rachel, and something that we're stating our intention for. But this one may be trickier than it sounds to those listening. So we'll do our darndest and see what we can come up with. But we are flagging that one as a potential bigger challenge, maybe than we would think. Particularly if Airbnb, VRBO, Vacasa, et cetera, are collecting those taxes on your behalf. They're going to collect those taxes irregardless of whether we say the reservation didn't meet them or not. It may end up being a conversation between the owner and their company that is collecting it. I don't know, because you all, I assume, have contracts with your third-party processors, and you may have to dig into that. So Sarah, maybe between now and the next meeting, working with Rachel with your contacts related to third-party processors as well, to see what that magic is, or if that is actually between the owner and the third-party processor and not something we'll be able to touch. So yeah, that must be tough. But yeah, apparently we're done because the system's giving up. It's starting to give me feedback. Okay, commissioners, we're good. Bill, Rachel, nothing further. Nope. Okay, with that being the case, we will adjourn this meeting tonight at 6:58. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your input. And we look forward to seeing everybody on February 12th, 10 a.m. If you're attending remotely, please find the link on the commissioner's webpage. There is a full page for this ordinance revision that will have the link there. It is not the DCD link.
And to register for public comment, technically connect with Debbie through the public comments email box, or give her a call to the commissioner's office to register so you can get the virtual links to participate.
Perfect, thanks. So you can be in person or you can be remote, but you do need to register if you're remote. Thank you. Okay, we are adjourned.